Hello, everybody. Welcome back into the Casual Sports Podcast. I'm Alec Caberna. That's Mike Wolfgang, and that's a frozen Matt Morrison. He's coming in and out. Hopefully he can get things situated on his end, but it might just be a lot of Mike and I talking today. So as Matt finds his way in here, let's start things off the way we always do. Question of the day. We got a busy one, so we're going to fly through some stuff here to start off. Question from yesterday. Name the College Football Hall of Fame coach who amassed 233 wins at historically black colleges and universities. The answer to that one, Joe Taylor. And your question of the day for today: who won the epic 7 overtime contest between Arkansas and Ole Miss on November 3rd of 2001? Leave your answer somewhere. Come on back tomorrow to see if you get it right. We got Thursday night football on tonight, Mike, and it's not really two great teams, but it could give us a decent matchup. We'll get to see Mike White in here now. Third straight week we'll see him play. He had a great week, too. You think he maintains and has a good week 3, or does he fall back off and the Colts go to 4-5?
I think he maybe somewhat falls off. I mean, potentially not, though, because it's been a short week. The Colts might have, not a whole lot of time to prepare for him, even though they have a full game of him to look at. But I think it's more of a decent game than people think it is, because the Colts they've shown flashes, but they're under the criticism of Carson Wentz, his play that he has been in Philly, that he's too inconsistent, and somewhat the team has been as well. So I think it'd be a decent game to watch tonight.
Well, this Colts squad, they've been finding something with Carson Wentz. I think their record, it's 3-5. I don't really think they're that bad of a team. I mean, you look at their last loss against the Titans, on this past Sunday. They lose by 3 points in an overtime matchup. Then their other loss, it was overtime against the Ravens. They did lose their first matchup to the Titans. That was by 9. And they lost by 3 to the Rams and 12 to the Seahawks at the beginning of the season to open things up. So I think this is a team that, despite their record sitting at 3-5, they are a lot closer to the top of, the AFC than they are to the bottom. So I think this is a good Colts team. They just haven't found a way to close out games, and they have an experienced guy with Carson Wentz. He dealt with injuries at the beginning of the season too. So this is a team that, coming here into the second half now, their final 9 games, they were one of probably my favorite teams to make a big run to the postseason if they can turn it around. I mean, they pretty much have to win out here if they want to get that spot in the playoffs, because they're in a dire situation already. But I think they have what it takes. I mean, you see what they've done here these past few weeks. Now that Carson Wentz is back, he's fully healthy. I think the Colts come in here, and I think they blow this team out pretty quickly. I think the Colts go big. I think Mike White, he looks like another average Joe at the end of tonight. Probably around 50% completion, 180 yards, 200 yards, maybe a touchdown, 1 interception. It won't be much. His jersey is in Canton Hall of Fame now after his first performance, but I don't think it's one that's going to, continue going. I think Zach Wilson's coming back, and he'll be their starter soon enough.
Yeah, and I've liked this Colts team. Like you said, I've liked them, going back to when they acquired Carson Wentz. I thought this has been a team, or I looked at this as a team before the season started, like, hey, they could potentially make a run here. And we talked about on the show before with them, they're not too far off. I mean, we'd like to see them play, like we talked about before, we'd like to see them get another playmaker on the outside for Carson Wentz to throw to. And obviously the health of Carson and some of the other guys is critical for this team. It's had, he started out a little bit banged up, and other guys have as well, and I think that's why they're sitting at 3-5. And last week a game like that, they could have won late at the end. So that plays a reason why they're. But I think they're better than what their record is, and I think if they can make a run, like you said, and get in the playoffs, I consider a team that can be scary.
Yeah, I mean, so are you taking the Colts here or the Jets tonight?
I'm going the Colts at home.
Well,
I still think it's going to be close. I think you think it's going to be a blowout, but I think it's going to be somewhat close.
Thursday night football, always something weird. Both teams coming off a short week. Matt, not here in the moment. He's having internet issues living out in the country. So if he gets back in here, he can give us his reasonings for the pick, but I do have most of his picks already. He's taking the Colts in this matchup too, guessing for similar reasons as us, but should be a fun one tonight. Anyways, we'll get to see at least one good quarterback. We'll see which one it ends up being.
It is a 10.5 point spread too, I think, so that kind of says a lot. It kind of leads towards what you're saying, what the game's going to be, but you never know.
But, if you want other football tonight and you don't want to go the NFL route, well, we got college football on tonight here, 7 p.m. Georgia State Panthers at the newly ranked once again. They were ranked to start the season. They lost to Texas. They've gone undefeated since then. They are 7-1, the number 25 24 ranked Louisiana Lafayette Ragin' Cajuns. They get to host Georgia State tonight, and this is one of those games you look at. It's an early week matchup. Georgia State has been a weird team this season. You know, they get wins against teams they're supposed to. They lost to App State by nearly 30, but then they pull within 10 points of number 12 ranked Auburn about a month and a half ago. So this is a team that has shown signs of being good, but they've also been very bad at points. This is a very up and down roller coaster team, and with the way Lafayette's been playing, they've been on a steamroll right now. The closest game that they've had in recent memory, you have to go back 2 weeks. They won 1 point against Arkansas State, but then they go the week after, they win 45-0. They beat App State 41-13. They beat OU 49-14. This is a team that can score on offense. It's just a question of their inconsistencies as well. So I think this could potentially be our group of 5 upset early here in the week.
Yeah, and you know, the Raging Cajuns are a team that they're normally ranked, you know, as the years go on. They normally find their way in the top 25. And, I mean, they're 7-1. They're given 13.5 in this game, so that says a lot about how the odds makers feel about their chance in this game. But I mean, I think it's an interesting one. You look at their schedules like you just ran through. They played some, you know, teams that we consider to be pretty decent and pretty average. So it's not like either team really hasn't played anybody. So I think this is going to be a good game tonight.
And I think it's a huge chance for Georgia State to at least cover that spread, if not pull the upset here. It doesn't seem like either one of these teams have played consistently, but I am going to stick with the Raging Cajuns. I've been a big fan of them since they hit those AP polls a couple of years ago. They've been on the rise, and I got no problems rooting for a Group of 5 team to pull through. And we're waiting to see if the Group of 5 team can ever make the playoffs. So the more that are ranked, the better off for it. So I'm going to stick with the Raging Cajuns to take this one. Get some more rankings for the Power 5 or for the Group of 5. Knock a few of those Power 5 teams that don't deserve to be there out of the rankings. I got the Cajuns taking this one 33-24. Matt's also sticking with me on this one. He takes the Cajuns 35-30. What do you got, Mike?
You know, I look at their schedule and like you ran through. The only team they lost to is Texas, and that's, you know, a team that's you know, more powerful than they are. I mean, they blew out an App State team that we talked about on the show that we consider to be, you know, a good team, and they normally come up with some decent wins. I mean, other than that, they really haven't played anybody really sticking out. But you look on the other side with Georgia State. I mean, they played App State and they got blown out by them. So it's, you know,
they also came within 10 points of Auburn, though. So this is a team correct. I think you can take lightly at least.
Yeah. But with that, I'm going with the Raging Cajuns as well. I think it's going to be. I'm going to go 20s here. I'm going to go them 28-23.
I think both of those scores end up being a little bit high scoring when we consider Group of 5 teams, but I think the Cajuns defense kind of been struggling along a little bit, and that's why they lost that Texas game. They just didn't have any defense. If their offense scores, they go 40+, but if the offense struggles, the defense falls right along with them, and this could be a game that could end up 40-20, or it could end up, 20-20, and we go to overtime. It should be a fun one, to say the least here, but let's look ahead this Saturday. Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons at the Tar Heels of UNC. Wake Forest, they're 8-0 right now. They crept up in the college football playoff rankings. They got that 9 spot. They feel they've been disrespected. I think this is a great chance right now. They come out immediately, strike big over UNC. They have to come out and just absolutely throw the hammer down, as 4-4 Tar Heels. They've been up and down. They've had some good games as well. This feels like a team that really should be better than what their record states, but they started off well in the season. They started off 3-1. They lost to Virginia Tech by 7. That was a ranked Virginia Tech team. Then they get the upset pulled by Georgia Tech. They lose that one by 23. Duke, they absolutely blew it out. Then Florida State pulls the upset over UNC. Then it's a close game against Miami, Florida. Then it's just 10 points last week against Notre Dame and a loss. So this is a team at 4-4 that, are 1 or 2 possessions away from being a 6-win team and probably sitting in that AP top 25 and giving the ACC another good team. So I think Wake Forest has a big opportunity right now. If they can pull this off, I think it looks like a better win. But if UNC rides the upset in this one, they are going to, make a big statement and cause some chaos in the ACC. You look at the standings right now, Wake Forest, they're in first place. They're 5-0 in conference play. NC State, the team right behind them, at 3-1. If Wake Forest loses this, NC State has the perfect opportunity to start climbing back up in that ACC contest before their matchup next Saturday in Wake Forest. So this is a big ACC game. A lot of people want to write this one off, go, hey, Wake Forest is going to blow this team out. I'm not thinking so fast in this one. Wake Forest could get troubled here by Mac Brown and a very talented UNC roster.
Yeah, if UNC is able to pull off this upset like you were just talking about, And like you were mentioning yesterday with the ACC, how you think it's stronger than what it is. And if UNC could pull this off, it's going to make it even stronger because they're going to make a climb up. Wake Forest will still be around there, but they're going to slip a little bit, lose to an unranked team. But I think it could strengthen the ACC if UNC pulls this one off. But, you look at they only lost 10 points last week against Notre Dame. Notre Dame team that's ranked 10th, and this Carolina team that we looked at thought they would have been better what they are this year, but they've hit some hard times. But
right, so if you look at a 10-point loss against the number 10 team, now they're facing the number 9 team. Clearly, the committee doesn't believe there's that much separation. So if UNC loses this, it shouldn't be more than 2 possessions, according to what our committee believes at the moment.
I mean, it shouldn't be, but you don't know with certain matchups with different teams. I mean, that's what plays into it. But I mean, if they show they can hang around with the current number 10 teams in new playoff rankings, then why can't they think they can go in and hang in with Wake Forest? I mean, they've had a good year, but yeah, they're number 9. It's a division conference matchups. Most of them are close. I mean, these types of ones that unranked teams find a way to stay in it, but then eventually the higher ranked team falls away. But if they can keep themselves in it, I'm with you. I think it could be an interesting one.
Well, I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But let's go ahead and make picks here. Mike, I'll start off with Matt's pick. He's taking Wake Forest 24-17. He's going low-scoring, one-possession game here. What are your thoughts on this one?
As I said, I think UNC can hang around, but I think Wake Forest has a lot to play for right now, and I think they're motivated where they are at number 9. They are, to climb back up. And they're the ACC team. They like you said the other day, it's Clemson. They were the ACC favorites the last couple of years coming out of the ACC. So I think Wake Forest looking, hey, why can't it be us? We need this win. So I'm going Wake Forest. I'm going with them 30-17.
All right, well, that's probably a good score here. And you know what? I've been loving this offense so far for Wake Forest. They have been dominating teams, offensively. Recently, their defense hasn't stayed strong. I mean, they put up 45 against Duke, 70 against Army, 40 against Wake Forest, 40 against Syracuse, 37 against Louisville. They put up 37 against Virginia, 35 against Florida State, 41 against Norfolk State, and then 42 against Old Dominion. This is one of the top-ranked offenses in the country, and they are being led by Sam Hartman. He has been amazing. He's had a few slip-ups, so that's going to cost him probably a chance at the Heisman, but he's somebody you have to look at as one of the best quarterbacks in college football right now, and probably one of the highest-rated talents we have coming out of college football in the next few years towards the NFL. When he goes, he's going to make an impact somewhere. You see this guy's numbers, he puts it up, and he plays consistent. This is a very good football player, and this offense is going to continue to roll along. I'm taking Wake Forest. Keep in mind, you just said that Clemson has been that favorite in the ACC. If Clemson had the same schedule as Wake Forest, they were undefeated right now, no doubt they would be sitting at number 3 in the current rankings, or potentially even number 2 based on the name alone. This is a team that deserves the respect that they believe they've earned, and I'm saying Wake Forest is going to take this one. I initially thought this was going to be closer. The more and more I sit here and think about it, Wake Forest is angry. Sam Hartman is ready to go. I'm taking Wake Forest in this one, 42-20. I think the defense still struggles, but I think that offense goes off once again here. And
I still think it's a good win for Wake Forest. They, like we think they're going to get it. I think it'll be a big win for them because UNC was a team that I think they were ranked 10th to start the season or something like that. They were near top 15 or top 10. So obviously the committee or the rankings thought something of them at the beginning of the year, and we all did too as well. And they still have some players that can make this game interesting. So I think regardless of where UNC is ranked, unranked, I think it's a big win for them. It's the one UNC wants to get. I know they want to get it because they want to keep climbing up, like we just talked about.
Yeah, I mean, UNC not having it either. And at the moment, UNC season relies on going to a bowl game. And with so few games left, you said at 4-4, you have 4 games left. You basically have to split them. And, their upcoming schedule, they can probably do it. They have Pitt, Wofford, and NC State in the 3 games following Wake Forest. So most likely you see a loss to Wake Forest and Pitt. But they could also lose to NC State, who is sitting in right behind Wake Forest as well in second place of the ACC Atlantic Division. So UNC needs this win just as much as Wake Forest does if they want to get back to bowl status. And they want a good bowl. They don't want no 6-6 bowl. They want to show a team that, they can be 7-5 at least, maybe get something a little bit better than the Holiday Bowl. So we'll see. Both teams, I think, desperate, but I think Wake Forest just a little bit more so. Next game up here, as I don't remember if I mentioned, Matt took Wake Forest 24-17 in that one. But this one probably game of the weekend. Much like Michigan State last week, This one probably highlights things. The number 12 Auburn Tigers, number 13 Texas A&M Aggies. These two teams have been kind of neck and neck, and in the same category, I think, as where we've been placing them on the show. Both teams, I think, we think are a little bit overrated, but they've done just enough. A&M gets the upset over Bama in what might just look like the best win of the season so far. Although I'm not too high on where Bama is in the rankings right now, I think it's undeniable that this A&M team has shown flashes throughout the season. I don't think they deserve a number 13 rating, and as we were talking about head-to-head matchups last night, Mississippi State holds the head-to-head matchup over this team, and Mississippi State comes in ranked 17th. So the entire college football playoff ranking system at the moment is a little out there. I think we just wait for that to settle down. But, Texas A&M, they've had a rough schedule this whole season. You go back, they've played Arkansas, Mississippi State, Alabama, and now they have Auburn here before Ole Miss next week, and then they finish out the season at LSU. It is clearly a tough road for A&M this entire season. The fact that I think they've pulled through here just speaks to the value of this football team and their ability to win in close games and win and finish late. And that's something they're going to have to be able to do here. And I think the biggest question going into this game isn't actually A&M. I think it's Auburn. Because you look at them on the season, they have just as many big games on their side, but they lost. They couldn't close it out against your Penn State. They only come out the next week and then nearly get upset by Georgia State. They only win by 5 against LSU. The question marks start adding up. And then they get blown out by 24 against Georgia. Even more question marks. But then they come out and blow out Arkansas. Then they win by 11 points against a ranked Ole Miss squad. Now here they have Texas A&M. And I think both these squads kind of sit in the same place. They want one of those New Year's 6 bowl games, and it's win-out time for either one of these teams. I think the biggest question, though, can Bo Nix stay consistent? Because he is one of those guys that is just so up and down, you can never count on him from week to week.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one. You talked about it being one of the best of the weekends, which, matchup-wise, ranking-wise, it is. It's a SEC matchup, but it's also a good matchup for the same reasons you just pointed out. You of course, the one that's been the main one, calling out Texas A&M, as we all have, but you started that. And,
right at the beginning of the season, I was like, this is a bad football team. Nothing about them is good. That was an upset against Alabama. It was a fluke game for Alabama, and it definitely should have gone the other way. But A&M pulled the upset. That's what we live for in college football.
And I think you were even talking about them a little bit last year because they were ranked around the same place last year. I think you started it back then. But, same reasons for Auburn. I like Bo Nix, but it's just the inconsistent we see with him. You just don't know what you're going to get out of him. And even the team overall, not just him, you don't know what you're getting week after week out of them. Last weekend they looked good. A couple other games throughout the season they've looked okay, but like you pointed out, some of their struggles. They, struggle with an LSU team that hasn't been good even going back to last year, and they've had issues all year. So I think it's a close game for reasons like that. Both teams want it. They're in the top 15. That's another reason why they want it, but the inconsistency, you just don't know what you're going to get from either team.
Yeah, that's for sure. And this game opened as a 4.5 point favorite for the Aggies in this one. So that kind of states where people think this Auburn team is. And despite the fact the committee puts them higher in the rankings, I think a lot of people expect Bo Nix to struggle here. And, when he's faced top teams, he tends to not play well, especially against bigger defenses. And obviously the fact that A&M had the talent to be able to pull off an upset against Alabama, you have to have some strength defensively to be able to make stops. You have matchups in that game, which is why they were able to win it. You just sometimes get matchup nightmares. I don't think A&M has the matchups against Auburn in this one. I think Auburn comes out. I think this one's close, and Alabama fans might like the score I'm taking this one. I'm going Auburn 29-28. Matt took Auburn 30-27 in this one.
I've been back and forth. When we started this conversation, I was thinking A&M, but I like Bo Nix. I think Auburn's going to take this one out. I'm picking them 28-23.
Yeah, and this is definitely a game that A&M can come right in and steal under, Auburn's fingertips. And clearly this is a game that Auburn is the underdog coming into it, and we're all taking them. So I guess maybe I should be ringing that bell early on in the show here. But I just don't see this as, an upset to do that. But this one, either way, should be a fun matchup, to say the least here. Next matchup on our slate, Oklahoma State. They slipped up. Can they rebound? They got the West Virginia Mountaineers, who sit at 4-4, but 4 losses haven't been that bad for them. They obviously pick up the win against Iowa State last week, a team formerly ranked, and their bad loss on the season, 25 points to Baylor back on October 9th. They lost by 3 to Texas Tech, they lost by 3 to Oklahoma, and they lost by 6 points to Maryland. This is a team, you kind of look back at, they've had a few mishaps on their own end, and that's probably the biggest reason why they've fallen back, and they're not where they probably should be in terms of this season. If they had a little bit better play, 1 or 2 bigger playmakers, this is a team we're talking about with the potential to upset WVU this week. And when I was putting together our schedule this week, I'm like, man, this is a game you have to look out for. We have a lot of these type of matchups this week. You got, big, undefeated, 1-loss, 2-loss teams pitted up against a team that's 4-4 that probably should be at 6-2. On the other hand, this becomes a top matchup. But just 1 or 2 games go the other way, and a little bit of struggle here, a little bit of struggle there. And you got a team at 4-4, and that looks very dangerous coming in here. And it's in West Virginia, there in Morgantown, so they obviously have a very electric atmosphere. And I got a feeling West Virginia could pull this upset.
I honestly feel like they can too. For the part of the reasons you were just saying, they're at home too in this game. You got to see how they respond after a win like that last week. Not a lot of people picked them to beat Iowa State, but they got another one at home against the top, one of the best teams that are out there. So, and it's in their conference. So I think it's gonna be a close one. I'm not gonna make my pick yet, but I like West Virginia in this game.
I liked him too, and I'll go ahead and give Matt's pick here. He picked Oklahoma State 28-10. He likes this offense here for Oklahoma State, and clearly they've been going along perfectly this season. Just the one mishap, and it fell badly. Lost by 3 points to Iowa State. They come out the next week, blow out Kansas 55-3. And you look in the other big games this season, they beat Baylor by 10 points. They beat Texas by 8 points. They've had a lot of close games. This isn't a team that pulls away, and I think that's the one downside here. You look at against West Virginia, they've had the same problem. They haven't been able to get over that hump late in games. Whichever team can do that late in the game today is going to be the one that comes away with it. They might not be the better team at the end of the day, but someone's got to come home with the victory nonetheless. And I just don't know if Oklahoma State has the firepower to be able to do that. Spencer Sanders, he's been fine. They haven't been putting up big numbers though, and that's probably the biggest problem. Even if they came into this week 8-0, the College Football Playoff Committee probably still has them around the same spot they sit right now at what I believe is 11th right now in the nation. So I don't think this is a team that is getting much value, and I think that's actually kind of deserved where they sit in the AP polls and the college football playoffs. So this is definitely an Oklahoma State team that is on the edge of glory, but West Virginia, those Mountaineers are coming. Want to give us your pick here?
They are coming. And on the flip side with West Virginia, like you said, they've been in some close games. They've fallen on some hard times, not being able to come through. But eventually, like I say, if you keep yourself in that, playing a team that really has been in too many close games, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but eventually it has to break through where you're in a close game. When you talk about this, some other teams in college and in the NFL this year, you're going to have eventually it's going to come through. If you just keep hanging in those games, keep believing you're going to come through, make some extra plays, you're going to find a way to win it. And when you're at home like West Virginia is, I'm picking the upset here with West Virginia.
Oh well, I was thinking of it. Give me your score here, Mike.
I hate doing these scores, you know that.
I know you do. That's why I make us do it.
I think it's going to be a 30s game. I'm going to go by a touchdown. I'm going to go 38-31.
38-31 here, and Mike, I've been thinking about this game all week, and I want to take Oklahoma State in it, but I also want to take West Virginia. I'm so flipped right now in this football game because you see the same things from either team. Oklahoma State has just come out, I think, with the better win in the end, and that's why I'm going to stick with them here. I'm going to go with my initial pick. I took Oklahoma State to start with. I'm sticking with it. I'm going OK State, the Cowboys, 35-28 here. I think it's close, but we've seen West Virginia not be able to close it out. And obviously the better win. They win by 10 against Baylor. That's why I got to take OK State in this one.
Yeah, and I know you have your bell ready, so I know it's prepared for you to ring it for somebody. But
it's getting warm over here. Trust me.
But for me, I think looking at the games, and I'm not saying no other upsets can happen, but this is the upset I feel comfortable picking. This. Okay, we see it. I heard you have it in the background before the show, but if the upset I'm going to pick, because I like to pick at least one a weekend. This is the one I feel safe about picking.
Yeah, I think it's probably maybe the safest one when you look at teams. I'm pulling one that might not be as safe here. Might it be this one? Michigan State Spartans, they go into the 5-3 Purdue Boilermakers home. And this one, I think, is one of those big matchups. It's a trap game. for Michigan State. They come off the big game against Michigan, riding the high. They beat Big Brother. All the hype is there. Number 3 in the college football playoff rankings. Everything is ahead of them. But what do we know about Michigan State? Every time they get caught ahead of themselves, they slip up. They got new coaching now. We'll see if that stands true, because the same thing used to happen to Ohio State. Ryan Day comes in, and we haven't seen that slip up from him so far. Not saying it can't happen, but we'll see if Mel Tucker can change fortunes around for Michigan State, continue to ride that high off of Michigan, off the close game against Indiana, and come in here into Purdue. And this is a good Purdue team. You can't count them out. They are 3rd place right now in the Big Ten West. They have the same record as a ranked Wisconsin. They have the same record as Maryland and Penn State. And in conference, they sit at 3-2. So this isn't a team to take lightly in any stretch of the imagination. And at home, they're 2-2. That's the one downside I think you look at right now for Purdue. They haven't defended home turf. But we saw this a few years ago when Ohio State went in there, riding some big highs, came into Purdue. And Purdue loves to screw up playoff chances here. So, Mike, what are your thoughts on this one here? Kenneth Walker probably goes big again, but can Peyton Thorne do enough?
I mean, yeah, on the flip side, like you're talking about Michigan State and, what we know about them in the past, but what do we also know about Purdue? Like you just said, Ohio State goes in there a couple years ago, they get upset. I mean, this year I picked them to beat Iowa, and they went on the road to beat Iowa. And, here's Matt. What's up?
I'm back.
Hey, there we go.
Oh, you look better too.
Mike, continue giving your thoughts here on the Michigan State game.
So with Purdue, like I said, it's hard because I picked them to do it once this year, but like you said, they're 5-3. They're still hanging around in their part of the conference, but I got to stay with Michigan State here.
I think that's the safest pick, though. You got a score for that one here, Mike? Favorite part of the show here, I know.
See, when I make these score predictions for each conference, I try to think like how the style of it is, and that's why I went kind of higher with the last one, because it's Big 12 and it's normally shootouts. But with Big 10 play, it's normally kind of close and kind of lower
low 20s
scored. Yeah, and I like Purdue. They were able to put up 20-something against Iowa's defense, so I'm going to go. I'm going to go 28-24.
I was thinking you were going to go 27-24, but 28-24 works just fine here.
I think for a good part of this game, we think it's going to be an upset. That's what I'll say.
And Matt here, Michigan State, Purdue, who you got? Initially, you gave me Michigan State 35-20. You thought this was going to be a pull away. You still stand by that one?
Yeah, I'm going to stand by it, but Purdue, man, you can't sleep on them. They could come back, and like you said earlier, they screw up playoff chances. They beat Iowa, and Iowa had like a drought after that because Purdue beat them. So, they beat a big team. Keep it going. Don't let the streak break. Keep it riding high.
Well, I told everyone the bell was going to get rung once this week. I'm lying. It's getting rung twice here, and I have to do it right now. I'm pulling the upset. I just got a feeling it's Purdue. I don't know why I like picking this team for the upset, but Mike, they've done it once this season. I think they do it again. Michigan State, their offense has been good in games, but they've been inconsistent. You look at Big Ten play, they have struggled besides their game against Rutgers. They win 3 points against the terrible Nebraska in overtime. They beat Northwestern to open up the season. It's probably their best game in conference besides Michigan last week. They win by 5 against the struggling Indiana. They win by 4 against a big question mark in Michigan. Who knows if this Michigan team is any good, because they haven't played anybody either. This is the big moment we always talk about when it comes to in a season that tells whether or not you're a good team. And Purdue, they've run the table. They beat the teams that they needed to. Yes, they only beat Nebraska by 5 last week. They lost by 17 to Wisconsin, 7 points to Minnesota, and they barely scraped by against Illinois. But it's that game against Iowa. They went in there against a great defense, put up 24, and on the flip side, took an offense that struggles and made them ride the distance and took them down and only allowed 7 points in that game. Purdue's defense is one of the most, underhyped defenses in the entire nation. They know what they can do when the Cards are down. They defend home turf, and I'm going to take Purdue in this one, 31-28. Kenneth Walker probably getting all 4 touchdowns for the Spartans, but it's not going to be enough. I'm taking Purdue in the upset.
And Alec, not try to look ahead. I'm sure we'll talk about it next week. This is a team that Ohio State has to host too.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I know it's different with them playing on the road, but it's still, like you said, the style they play. That's something to look forward to next week.
It's a matchup nightmare. They bring in a lot of speed. They bring in a lot of aggressiveness, and that's what overwhelmed Iowa. And I think Michigan State sits in a different spot. And I think Mel Tucker, this is the first time he's had to get these guys back in a rhythm after coming off a big game. And that's my big question mark for Mel Tucker in his coaching career. He's obviously a young coach. When it comes to head coaching, he was not good at Colorado. He got hired here at Michigan State. First season wasn't good. Second season, he's been fantastic, but they've had an easy schedule so far. They beat their rival. Can they maintain the high is my question, and that's why I got to take Purdue. I don't think they maintain, and that's what separates, like I've said with Ohio State this, throughout the season, that's what separates great from elite. Being able to maintain and not slipping up again. You have to be able to just keep going no matter what happens to your team. Never lose that edge, and I want to see if Mel Tucker can do that. Until we see that happen, I just can't give them the pick here, and I got to go Purdue. They've been in this situation before. So next game up here on the schedule, I think another similar one. We've been waiting for Boise State to do something all season long after they upset BYU back October 9th, and they nearly pulled off the upset against Oklahoma State. They've sucked against some teams they probably should have beat, but now once again they get a top 25 team on the road. It's Fresno State, the Bulldogs. They pick up the big win against San Diego State last week. They get their playoff ranking. I think they set at 23rd right now in their rankings, and they've got a playoffs. I mean, they have a bowl game spot, and they have 3 games left in the season, and this one of their final 2 home games. Emotions could be riding high here. What are your guys' thoughts?
Go ahead, Matt.
Mike, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a team like Boise State, like we've been waiting for them to do something all year. We talked about at the beginning of the year, this is a good Boise State team. I don't know if I say they're still good, but 4-4, we kind of expect
they're a roller coaster.
Yes, they've been a roller coaster of hovering around 500 all year. And with Fresno State, I mean, they pick up a win against UCLA early in the year, and they're 7-2 right now. So they've proven something with what they played this year, and obviously with the 7-2 record, it's paid off for them.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. Boise State, Boise State and Fresno State, they're kind of similar. They're low, they're not really high-rated teams. So this game putting them in the same game together makes it even bigger. You put these, they're kind of low, but they're high in a way. Like they're a small school, but they're big for their area. If I'm making sense.
Yeah, and they only lose by 7 to Oregon. I mean. And they beat UCLA. They beat Nevada team that's decent. They beat a San Diego State team last week. That you highlighted this game last week.
That was our game to look at.
And they win this game. And San Diego State's in the top 25. So they have some good wins on their resume for a smaller team like Fresno State.
Yeah.
And I mean they only lost to Oklahoma State by 1.
Right, so I think that's why this game looks a little bit closer than I think a lot of people are going to look at it. You see a 4-4 Boise State team and a ranked Fresno. My big thing, Fresno State, they have been here before. They have been in the top 25. You go back just a few seasons ago, this was a team that was in it consecutive years. They, know what to do to get the job done come the end of the season. This is a California school. They got good recruiting. They got good coaches, and they're one of those teams that is a big stepping stone for big-name coaches to come out of. Same with Boise State, but they haven't had it pulled together completely this year. They've had some close games, but they're one of those teams like West Virginia. They can't get over that hump at the end of the game, and that's why I've got to stick Fresno State here. I'm going 28-21 to the Bulldogs.
You got a score, Matt?
Yeah, I got to go Fresno State as well. Alec, what did I say?
You picked 30-20 here for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
I'm going Bulldogs. I'm going Bulldogs 31-14.
Oh, you're going a little bit bigger. All right.
A little bigger.
What makes you think they pulled away?
I just ran through their resume. They've competed with some good teams. They beat some good teams, and Boise State's been a team that we've been waiting to do, and we've given them chances all year, and they haven't come through with it. And it's not like we haven't seen this with Boise State the last few years. It's a team we look at as a tough team, but I think this is Fresno State's time to get a win like this. And I look for them to prove their record 8-2.
All right, here next game on the slate. Cincinnati, the Bearcats, they dropped to 6 with the first initial college football playoff rankings. They were number 2 in the AP polls coming in. They have the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes, who obviously they are a 3-5 team with a loss to an FCS opponent. But keep in mind, they hung in there against Oklahoma State. They hung in there for a while against Ohio State. They got blown out by Houston, and they've just had an up and down season with a lot more downs than ups. But I think you just have to look at those 2 games early in the season, Oklahoma State and Ohio State. I want to see them get back into a rhythm here and at least provide Cincinnati with a bit of a struggle. We saw Cincinnati struggle already this season. They came up short against Navy. They won that 27-20 when it should have been a blowout like the previous week. We haven't seen Cincinnati really continue to pull away since, they've kind of started going down in the rankings. They got a win last week, 31-12 over a tough Tulane team. So I think you obviously see Cincinnati as the favorite here, but if this is a team in Tulsa, I don't think you can sleep on going into it.
And we talked about, the weeks before these rankings came out the other day, like if Cincinnati wants to get in, like they got that big win against Notre Dame. So all they have to do left, I don't want to say like it's an easy thing to do, but what they have to do left going forward is you got to blow all these teams out in your conference. Yeah. You got to get these style points.
No doubt.
And so far, they really haven't done that. Like you said, the last few weeks, they blew out UCF, but the last 2 weeks, they've been in close games, and they've able to pull a way through. I think they pull away in this one, too. I think Tulsa's a team that can hang around, like you said, and they've done it with some good teams. But I think Cincinnati knows, I think they're kind of ticked off with we're at number 6, and I think, I think this is a game that it's going to be another close one, but I think they're going to pull away eventually, at the end.
Give us your score here, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm going 34-24.
All right, here. I'll give Matt here a brief analysis. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, I agree with you here. I mean, this Tulsa team isn't – I mean, I think they're going to beat Tulsa. I mean, I think that's who I picked, right, Alec?
Yes.
But
you picked this game, Cincinnati 40-24.
Yeah, but teams, like Indiana hang in there for a little bit and, Navy hang in there for a little bit. So they can't sleep too well on Tulsa. Like you said, they gave Ohio State a battle for a little bit. And but I think Cincinnati will pull in the end here with the score.
All right, well, I'm at a similar page. I just got one feeling about this Cincinnati. They're angry right now, and sometimes you see a team come out angry, they play great. They run the walls off and burn the house down. Other times, you see these angry teams come in there, and they've run straight into a brick wall. They go the wrong way out of the doors, fall right into the team's swimming pool. And, this is one of those instances. I want to see what the reaction is from Cincy before you go saying this is going to be a blowout. Because on the paper, it should be one. But emotions ride high in college football. These, after all, are just, teenagers and young adults the same age we are. We know emotions get the best of us at times. Emotions can get the best of these Cincinnati players too. And I think that's the one spot you have to look at. Do they feel disrespected, and how do they act if they feel that way? This can be a game where they get a lot of penalties, and it lets Tulsa stick in the game. If you don't take advantage, Tulsa sticks around. I think they stick around, and I think this happens similar to what Ohio State did. It's a tough-looking first half. Cincinnati might go down once again in that first half and look close, look like they can't pull away, much like they did against Tulane. It was 14-12. But I think second half changes things up. I think second half Cincinnati will take it once again. I got the Bearcats right and strong, 33-22.
Nice pick.
Next up, one ranked team, one non-ranked team. They're both got the same record at 5-3. The Mississippi State Bulldogs, the Arkansas Razorbacks. Obviously, let's run through the Razorbacks schedule here first. They beat Arkansas Pine Bluff, an FCS team last week. Expected to. The SEC loves their cupcakes, so we'll keep feeding them to them, apparently. And they lose to Auburn by 15. They lose to Ole Miss by 1. They get blanked against Georgia. But before that, this Arkansas team was as hot as fire running through those first 4 games of the season, and they were one of those teams in the SEC we all had ranked in the top 10, and we're expecting big things out of this season. On the flip side, Mississippi State, everyone's made their case against them already, practically on the show, but they did get a ranked win last week against Kentucky by 14 points. They got blown out by Alabama. They beat Texas A&M, and this is just one of those games you look at. They have a tough Auburn coming up. Keep in mind, though, if you want to go out of conference, what have they done? They beat the number 2 team in the ACC Coastal and NC State by 14 points. So Mississippi State has made their case at least to be in the top 25 potentially, but that doesn't subtract from the fact that they have a very difficult Arkansas coming up, and it's on the road this weekend. And I think that's the one side Arkansas can look at and go, hey, this one might be ours for the taking.
Yeah, you absolutely can say that. Arkansas, I mean, they've lost some tough battle games. But Mississippi State, I mean, I talked about this yesterday. I don't even know why they're ranked right now. I mean, you lose to Memphis and LSU. I mean, you get blown out by, Alabama. But, yeah, I don't know why they're ranked right now. That's just an honest statement right there. But I think Arkansas could run the tables on it. I don't know who I picked the first time, but whoever
You
I
didn't pick this one, so.
I didn't pick this one.
No, I added this one late, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Fresh picks from all of us.
I got to go Arkansas for the upset here. I say, 20-14 Arkansas.
All right, what about you, Mike? Here, what are your thoughts?
Matt, and it's an Arkansas team. It's like they have the 3 losses, but it's not like they're against bad teams. I mean, they got blown out against Georgia, but everybody's getting blown out against Georgia. Nobody's scoring against Georgia, so I got to go with Arkansas as well in this game. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 24-20. I think it'll be close.
Well, both picking close ones, both taking the upset, though, and I mean, at least you can say it's an upset based on current rankings, but you look at these two teams right now, Arkansas last place in the SEC West, and they have the same record in conference as teams such as Missouri, so, this hasn't been a great team, but the one thing you look at, home and away splits. 4-1 Arkansas is at home, so that's the one side I think you might look at. Mississippi State 2-1 on the road. But I think I got to go with the Bulldogs here. They've obviously shown enough to the committee in these past few weeks to be a ranked team. And I think this is one of those games they come off a high against Kentucky. And I think Arkansas still kind of riding a low. Their last actual football game, not FCS. They don't play well. I think they're on their way down and out. And this is not a great season for Arkansas yet again. They were overhyped beginning of the year, and I'll admit to that. I had them overhyped as well, and I got Mississippi State, and I got them taking this one 35-20. I don't think this, frankly, is a close one. I mean, what have we seen from Arkansas in the last few seasons? Absolutely nothing. They have a miracle run to start the season. They touch SEC play, and they've won once. It was clearly a fluke. Clearly, they don't deserve to be in the spot that we had them at earlier in the season. They played well, but when the cards came down, they folded. So it's over for them. And Mississippi State, they got a chance now to at least find a New Year's Six bowl game. So if they can run the tables out, they can cause some chaos and potentially get themselves into a good spot come the end of the season. So I got State.
There you go.
That's a fair analysis, honestly. I mean, the last time only when you're talking about is against Texas, and now Texas isn't even ranked 2.
Right.
And I mean,
and Matt, remember we were looking at earlier.
They had a close one against Ole Miss. They lost by 1, and Auburn took it to them. Though I mean, 38-23, they took it to them. So I mean, that's a fair analysis.
Yeah, and you were looking earlier, Matt, before that Georgia game. We were looking on the show hey, they got all of these games coming up. They're going to be tough ones, and they didn't find a way to get it through. But they lose to a team like I said, team like Georgia, where nobody's beating them right now. So I guess you can look at it that way. But I can also see how it's going here.
Play Alabama. Too.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, we looked at Arkansas before those games we went. If they want to be a legitimate team, they have to win at 2 of these games, and they didn't do it. So they have lost all legitimacy in my mind. Mississippi State, they've won some of their tough matchups, and I like the out-of-conference win against NC State early. It doesn't look like a great win at the moment because the fact NC State's not ranked, but it's a team that potentially should be ranked here if they can continue to win on. So that's a team to look out for in the ACC, sitting right behind Wake Forest come that matchup the following Saturday here. But this one, guys, we got to go back to your team. Penn State Nittany Lions, they go into Maryland. Both teams are 5-3 right now, and I think that's kind of the big shocker here. Maryland, they beat Indiana by 3 points. They got blown out against Minnesota. They get blown out in those 3 straight games, Iowa, Ohio State, Minnesota. But the rest of the season, they didn't look that bad. They got the win over West Virginia, and that was a big one. And here comes the meat and potatoes of their schedule. Penn State this week, Michigan State the following. Then they got Michigan after that. So they got a tough ride here, but I just got a feeling Maryland can at least cause some chaos for Penn State here early on, especially considering it's on the road. And Penn State on the road this season, they sit at 1-2, and Maryland has defended home turf well. They're 4-1 in that stadium.
Yeah, and I see why. Yeah. And also as a fan, I see why you're saying it could be a close one. I mean, you lose Illinois, anything's possible going out the rest of the way out.
But this Maryland team almost lost to Illinois as well.
Correct, and I mean it's 10-point spread here. It's 10 points. Penn State's favored by 10 after losing 3 in a row. So obviously the odds makers think there's something there. for Penn State. They're on the road. They played well in Maryland in the past. So
They have.
I don't know. This game's a little – go ahead, Matt.
Despite the troubles they have been through, I mean, the Illinois game, but I mean, the Ohio State game, it's a
showed
good
something.
Loss. It's a good loss. They showed something, and I think they're gonna, take what they did in that game because they played good in that game. They lost. They put up a good performance. I think they're gonna take that performance and bring it into the next few weeks here, and get a couple more wins. Maybe they still have a chance to get into a good bowl game. Their season isn't entirely over. So, I mean,
no, not even the slightest. I mean, they have a hard schedule coming up too. Obviously, this Maryland game, not one to overlook. But obviously, Michigan next week. You finish the season at Michigan State, and obviously, you get Rutgers in there, perhaps a little bit of a break.
You don't want to mess with them. They beat Illinois,
right?
So.
And but with Penn State, this is a place that they played well in the past, and their fans travel there. It's not too far of a drive from State College, and I was actually planning on going to this game, but I don't think it's going to happen. But their fans show out for this game, and Penn State normally plays well here, and I think after losing 3 in a row, and like you said, Matt, last week was a good win. They showed a lot of good things in that loss, even though it was a loss, but they showed a lot of good, especially on the defensive side in that game against Ohio State, and they only lose by 3 to Iowa. The Illinois mistake, but I don't see them losing 4 in a row here. And it's like I said, it's a Maryland team that they're in the similar situation, but I got to go with the experience here with Sean Clifford. Their defense has been playing good, not just in the Ohio State game, but all year. That's been the one constant of this team that we can look forward to or look at that said, hey, that's something you feel good about all year. So I still got to go with Penn State in this.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I'm looking at this game right now. You look at the all-time series between these two teams, 40-3 against Maryland with one tie in there, and that one came back in 1989 when it was played in Baltimore, Maryland. But you look, 3 wins for Maryland. 1961, November 4th, same day as today, 1961, in College Park, Maryland, 21-17, Maryland pulls the upset. It then took them 53 years to find another win. They did it in Penn State, at State College, November 1st, 2014. Looks like we're finding a trend here. They win it 20-19. You then flash just another couple years down the line to last season. Maryland pulls the win off in State College, 35-19 against, a down Penn State. But you just see something when they play and they win. It comes early November here, and I just think Maryland loves to play this team tough in November. You look down, when these two teams have met at this time of the year, it has been close. This is when Maryland strikes big, and that's why I told you guys that bell was getting rang twice here tonight. This was the other one. I've got Maryland pulling the upset against Penn State. I got Maryland taking this 26-23.
Is it an upset, though? I mean, both teams are 5-3, and they're not ranked, so is it an upset?
Yes, this is an upset.
I mean, Penn State should win. I'm not arguing they should be.
The fact that it's a 10-point spread, everyone goes, oh, Penn State should win this one by a mile. And if it's not for the one fluke against Illinois, Penn State sits in the top 25 now with 2 losses against an Iowa that at the time was good and at the time has since fallen off, and now the number 5 ranked Ohio State. So yes, Penn State is a team. If they don't fluke against Illinois, they're probably ranked 15th, right around the same spot as A&M, Auburn, Mississippi State, same spot they sit in. So yes, this would be an upset for Maryland.
I'm not arguing that at all. Like I said, Penn State should win this game, even though they're both in the same exact situation. Penn State has by far the most talent, and I think we all know that. And Alec, you know what? I kind of, when you were saying you had the bell out and you were thinking about ringing it twice, this is a game I thought you were. Not because it's Penn State, but I thought this was a game you were going to look at towards ringing it because I could see Maryland winning this game.
Yeah.
But
you can at least see it being set up right here. 3 straight losses already. They tend to compile here for Penn State. They don't, go out there, win 3, win 1, lose 1. That's not Penn State. They either win them all or they lose them all. It tends to be a train here for Penn State, and that's why I think they lose this. Mike, what's your score for this game, Penn State Maryland?
I think it'll be a nail biter for a good part of it. Like it was against against Illinois, but I think Penn State pulls away. I'm gonna go 31-23.
All right, here 1 game left on our slate. the Tennessee Volunteers at Kentucky Wildcats. Kentucky 6-2 right now, and they obviously come off a 14-point loss last week. They lost the week before that to Georgia. They lost by 17 there. They've had their tough games as well, and I think this is another chance you see Tennessee potentially coming in and flushing the upset on them. Obviously, this is a Tennessee squad that they've had their down games against good teams, but I think it's at least one to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to look at it. Kentucky, I mean, they're a good team, but, I mean, they're not on the level of Georgia, obviously. And, this is a team that actually lost to, Mississippi State. So I bet you the people in the committee looked at that like, hey, they beat Kentucky. They had some bad losses. They beat Kentucky. But this game, I mean, Tennessee, I can't remember the last time Tennessee was any good. Probably Peyton Manning. But I mean, you almost have to just automatically pick Kentucky here. I mean, they have had big wins, and they've been ranked pretty much all year. You have to go Kentucky here. But
all right, Matt, you're taking Kentucky. What's your score?
I got to go like 31-17.
Fair enough. You've been rolling with Kentucky all season. Those were your boys so far.
Yeah.
They've had a few slip-ups. You got to stick with them here. Matt, last time Tennessee won the SEC championship, 1998. So, yeah, it's been a while.
Peyton Manning.
Yeah. So, Mike, here, what's your thoughts on this one here? Tennessee, Kentucky.
I'm going Big Blues. The same reason Matt just said. Tennessee hasn't shown anything. I mean, their best win, I guess, was against South Carolina. I mean, I'm looking through it.
Win.
That's probably their best win.
Right.
I mean, Missouri stinks. Yeah, I'm going Big Blue as well. I'm going them 33-20.
All right, here. I'm going to take Big Blue as well. I got Kentucky rolling 35-24. I just thought it was one game that maybe one of us would have gone with the upset a little bit. I think there's potential. I don't know if they pull it off, though. So I'm going Kentucky in this one. Let's move along here into some of our other predictions from the week. We had the Charlotte Hornets going up against the Golden State Warriors last night, and once again I get the picks right. I took the Warriors. They played it out. They won that one pretty well, and we all actually picked them as well. So good job, Mike. You pick up your first win in the NBA. Charlotte Hornets now fall to 5-4. They're on a bit of a slid here. 2 straight losses. Cavs, Warriors. They get the Kings tomorrow. What were you guys' biggest takeaways from this game? As Miles Bridges has 32, Gordon Hayward with 23, and Steph Curry had a low game, got a 15-point near triple-double, and Jordan Poole goes off for 31.
I mean, they got some balanced scoring on their side, but I look at the way Golden State is. From their dynasty days till now, we look at them as a 3-point shooting team, and in this game they were still 3-point shooting, heavy, but I mean, they just beat you with the way they move the ball. They still have their best players from those runs. They know how to move the ball, and they got some step-ups from the young guys like Damian Lee and Jordan Poole, who I like a lot, and I liked him coming out of that draft. He's a guy, at the time I wanted the Cavs to look at, and he can shoot. So that's what I looked at towards this game, or during this game.
All right, as we made our predictions as we just made our predictions, I'll give you the quick rundown. I forgot to do it before we went into it, of what our predictions were last week. So last week, Mike, you and I once again were tied in college football. We went 5-3 and 5-3. Matt, you were down at 4-4 in the NFL. Mike, you were tied with Matt at 8-7. I had the down week 7-8. It was a bit of a cluster. Mike, you came out on top though, 13-10 overall. Matt and I both stuck at 12-11. So we got a tough week coming in ahead of us. I still sit in first place of the running totals, but we're adding all these other predictions in here. So numbers about to go through the roof. I'm at 80-39. Mike, you're at 79-40, and Matt, you're at 73-46. So time to step things up down there. You got plenty of games to do it though. We got lots of stuff to go
I'm on your
over.
back. You better look out.
You've been right with me all year long. I've been worried about you. I've been slipping up. I had such a hot start, and now I've been going downhill. But we got another prediction for tonight, so we'll see which guy comes out on top. We got the Utah Jazz hitting the road against the Atlanta Hawks. Jazz sit at 6-1. They beat the Bucks last time, but they beat the Kings last time. The Bucks before that, their one loss came to that fierce Bull squad by 8 points just 5 days ago. What are your thoughts on this one? Hawks sit at 4-4.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, with the Hawks coming out, they started out slow last year, and they made a run with the coaching change. Right now, sitting at 4-4. Just looking through your schedule here, that they lose the Nets, they pick up a win against the Wizards. So they, some other games they had here. they had they lose against the Sixers, and they pick up some wins against some low teams like the Detroit and the Pelicans. But they beat a good Dallas team like we talked about the other day. The first game of the season, they beat them pretty badly. So this is a good game. I'm glad you picked this one out. But I actually like the Hawks in this game at home tonight.
Well, Matt, what's your thoughts on this one? You initially picked the Hawks. You sticking with them?
Yeah, I'll stick with them. I like the upset a little bit. The Jazz, they're looking pretty good, but they're playing. They played some soft teams. Some of the teams, yes, they were playoff teams from last year, but they're not looking the same. They beat the Thunder. The Kings. Yes, the Nuggets were a playoff team, but they're not looking like the old Nuggets. The only team they lost to was, were the Bulls, and they're on fire right now. And like Mike said, Atlanta had some tough losses, and I think they'll pull this one out tonight.
I'm going the other way on this. I got the Jazz. They've been rolling right along. Hawks, they're in the same situation as all those other teams you just mentioned. They're kind of not having the best start to the season. Waiting for them to find a rhythm. Probably make a trade here at some point and get something onto that squad before we really get into Christmas time. I imagine that's probably when we see a lot of big trades coming in here, right? As we hit December. You get this first month of November, see what you get out of it, and that's probably when we see some mix-ups here. I got a feeling the Hawks are going to be one of those teams looking for a mix-up. I got the Jazz taking this. They're on fire. They've been having great play all around. I'm taking them here once again. So I'm the lone wolf out. The only time we've had a lone wolf in the NBA, Mike, you took the Mavs on our first pick, and you ended up being wrong. So we'll see if you guys take the win over me this time out. But we got one more pick here to make on the show. This one comes NHL tonight. Panthers versus Capitals. Panthers 8-0-1, Capitals 5-1-3. It's in Florida, and we made our picks last night. I was the only one right. Columbus Blue Jackets beat the Colorado Avalanche in overtime, so that was a great one. But it went down overtime. The two games we picked have gone overtime. So does that impact your thoughts here in this one?
No,
Matt,
not too much.
Yeah, looking forward, they played good this year. The 8-0-1.
8-0-1.
It's a team
they're
that
going
wasn't
through some stuff right now. The coach just resigned, but they're still good.
And they're coming off a big break too. They haven't played since October 30th when they went to a shootout against the Bruins, and that was their loss on the season. So, and that was their 0-1. But Flyers also gave them a rough one earlier in the season, October 23rd too. So,
yeah, and you talk about Matt what they're going through. They're 8-0-1, and this is a team that wasn't in this spot last year to start off.
No.
And this is another one, Alec. I'm glad you picked out. There's some other games you could have talked about too tonight.
Yeah,
Louis
and
San Jose.
Flyers tonight.
Yeah,
you got Penguins Flyers tonight.
Yeah, that's a rivalry, and you got St. Louis and San Jose and some other teams, but
it's probably the highest win in terms of win to loss. So that's why I went with this one. So
I understand that, but
Matt, I know you don't like the Capitals, but I'm going with the Capitals in this game.
Ooh, all right. Well, Mike, you're actually the only one going with the Capitals. Matt, you initially picked the Panthers. Are you going to stick with it?
I'm going to stick with the Panthers, yes. But, yes, I do not like the Capitals. But, I would pick them if I honestly thought they were going to win. I have respect for some of their players. Ovechkin,
you got to love Ovechkin.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But
yeah, I'm going to take the Panthers here again. I don't know much about hockey, but I can see when a team wins, and this is a team that's been winning, and they're coming off the long break, so I think they're rested up, they're ready to go for another big stretch of games. So I'm going to take the Panthers over the Capitals in this one. But that's all we got here on the show today. Any last segments you want to talk about your Flyers versus Penguins here tonight before we head off?
Penguins go to get one.
I don't want to talk about that, but I do got to talk about the big trade that happened in the NHL today.
Go ahead.
Jack Eichel from the Buffalo Sabres got sent over to the Golden Knights today. Did you hear about that, Mike?
I did not hear about this one. This is the first time I heard.
Sabres got a big package. I think I forget the players, but they got a couple good players from the Golden Knights, and I think they got some draft picks as well. But Eichel was literally the king in Buffalo, who's like their leader, and to trade him away like that, it's like it's time to move on. Buffalo's been down the past couple of seasons. I'm like, that's a statement.
Yeah, it is a statement. It's they've been down the last few years, but they're sitting at 5-3-1 right now, so it's not like they're what they have been the last few years. But I haven't heard about this trade. It's first I'm hearing it from you. It's first I heard about it, but it's a pretty interesting one. You get a big package like that for a guy like that. So we'll see where it takes Buffalo.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
Well, that's going to do it
absolutely.
here for the Thursday show of the Casual Sports Podcast. We're making a lot of predictions tomorrow, so make sure you come on back. I'm Alec Berna, that's Mike Wolfgang, and Matt Morrison to the other side of this screen. We hope you'll have a good day. Come on back tomorrow. We got lots of fun, plus high school playoff preview as well for our team and Mike Wolfgang's alma mater, Gerard. So make sure to come back in for that. But that's going to do it here for the podcast on Thursday. We'll see you all tomorrow.